Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
I'm Mac.
And today we're going to talk about 10 games we played at CastleCon. So, these weren't all new to us games, but we kind of ranked them as well, gave our thoughts on how they were, but we'll kind of talk about how we played them throughout the day and then just give our rankings of them, talk about the game a little bit, and then maybe throw in some other stuff about CastleCon. It was a first-time con, I believe. It was about an hour and a half away from where we live, and we thought we'd try it out and see what they had, because they had a library of games, and for the conventions we've gone to, the few that we have, I always enjoy kind of just learning and playing a bunch of new games. So, personally, I don't know, is that something you enjoy about them? Or do you prefer... we did go to Gen Con once, too, which I think is very different.
That's its own thing. I feel like you can't loop that in with other conventions and stuff.
It is kind of its own.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, if we're just going to sit at home and play games that we already know with each other, then we might as well just stay home. So, if we're going to go to a convention, then I think, well, why not just learn some games that you don't have at home? Because otherwise, like I just said, you could have just stayed at home.
That is true.
So...
but yeah, what did we start off with to play at the beginning of when we got there?
Yes, so we got there, and it was pretty packed, and the library was pretty busy. So you picked up Machi Koro, which is kind of crazy because this one is like a long time board game.
Game that's been out for a while.
That's been popular, but I've never played it before.
I have not played it either.
Which is maybe a little bit shameful for a board game YouTuber to not have played.
I don't know. There's games that you just don't get to.
Yeah.
If no one has it, how would you ever play it?
This is true. So Machi Koro is where we started.
It is. And I have that one. So we played 10 games, including one of them that we'd already previously played. And I've got this one coming at 9 out of the 10. It's a game that I would say reminds me a lot of Space Base, and I just think I enjoy Space Base more. So I think it just got a lot to go up against, but I think if you wanted a lighter version of Space Base, this would be the perfect game for that. I think it would be much more approachable, because I think Space Base has a few things in it that are just a little bit more than maybe someone that's not in the hobby would be able to play. But yeah, it's just got the mechanic where you roll die. It's kind of like Catan as well. If you've played that, you roll one die. In this one, you can roll just one die, which is a little bit different, but then sometimes you'll be rolling 2 dice. Then you just activate these buildings that you have based on what was rolled.
Yeah. Yeah, I gave it a 6 for the day, or it was my number 6 game for the day. I enjoyed it. I like Space Base as well. You're right, Space Base does have just a little bit more to offer on that, but otherwise, I just had fun with our playthrough of it. It was kind of silly and a good one, I think, to start the day for us. So. Yeah,
and I would say, even though it was 9 for me, I enjoyed, I think, every game we played in the day. My number 10 was just a little bit different, I'd say.
I think we might have the same 10. So, after that, we then played the Rose King. So Zach ended up bringing 3 games to our table because it was a little bit packed.
Yeah, we ended up in the middle of a table that was in the middle of a bunch of other tables. It was very hard to get in and out.
Yeah, so you were smart and you just grabbed 3 games off the bat. So next we played the Rose King, which was my number 3 game of the day.
It was my number 4.
Oh,
so both had it pretty high. But yeah, this was kind of one of the abstract strategy games.
Yeah, I was going to let you describe what this was.
Where you've got kind of this chess or checkers like board. Well, not really. It's just a grid. It's a grid. There wasn't black and white spaces or anything. It was just a grid board. And you've got these cards in front of you that kind of have like compasses on them as to which. So there's a crown on the board somewhere, and then they have like, it can move. If you play this card, it moves, diagonal this way or straight this way, and it goes 1, 2, or 3 spaces, and wherever that would put that, you get to play one of your roses. So it's a 2-player only game, playing white and red roses, and at the end of the game, once either all the roses have been played or no one can make a legal move, then you count up points based on how big of groups you have, and it's the number in the group squared. So if you can make a huge group, it kind of outdoes anything else, potentially. But I had a lot of fun with it, so I thought it might feel like, oh, shoot, that doesn't really work because it just feels like, oh, if I just get the biggest one, I win. And I think that could work, but it felt like it was going kind of back and forth the whole time.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like, oh, it's obvious who's winning. At least, I mean, we only played it once. But,
Yeah. Yeah, I got spanked around a little bit on that, and I thought initially when you kind of were explaining it, I was like, oh no, it's that one game. I think it's called Othello.
I've never played it.
It's like that white and black chip one.
Oh.
Where you're like flipping over to, I don't know, I hate that game. So I was like, oh no, here we go. But I felt like this was good. Like you got to kind of, you were limited by what you had for cards, and they kind of had this charge aspect, so you could maybe flip a key one if you accidentally left something vulnerable like I did. So overall, yeah, good game.
Yeah, it's from the designer of Alhambra, if you've ever played that as well. So, good designer, I would say.
Well, our next one, before we broke for lunch, I think, was Skyrocket. And that is a firework game where you are managing different timers that represent the different fireworks, playing cards to get them flipped, while trying to kind of get to the finale by flipping a certain color once it's finally run out. So we did 5 individual scenarios on that one. And I gave that one, it was my 9th game for the day.
Ooh, it was my number 5.
Oh boy.
So yeah, this is kind of similar to the Crew, where it has like different missions or whatever, or different fireworks shows you're trying to do each time, and I thought it was just kind of fun. We don't really have that many sand timer games, but I think this one worked in that way where you're trying to flip them over. It's just that kind of game. It's more of a party style game, I would say. So it's whether or not you like
gimmicky.
A little gimmicky. And yeah, if like any of the sand timer games with a like you got to go fast aspect to it, with all these 6 sand timers lined up in the middle of the table, you're bound to accidentally knock something over and whatever. So if you don't like that kind of thing in your games, you're probably not going to like this one. But I thought it was a fun little different thing that we don't really have many in our collection.
That's true, I guess. Yeah.
But at the same time, if you don't like sand timer games, I don't think this is going to change your mind. It is what it is as a game, but I enjoyed our play of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't one of my favorites for the day. So. All right, next up we played Monster Expedition, which was my number 5. I forget, was this a...
Alexander Pfister game.
That's the one. I was going to say Pfister, but I was afraid that wasn't right. So, and in this game, you have 3 different landscape types that correspond to different monster cards that you can go hunting in. And then the card is going to give you a certain color dice, and then along with some black die. Obviously, typical of these types of games, the color die is going to be the one that gives you the best chance at high numbers. The black die being...
1 to 6.
Yeah, the plain and ordinary ones. You roll them all. It's kind of Yahtzee style where you can only take one number, well, Yahtzee-ish, I should say, where you're going to take a number and then you'll roll the dice, and then you have to take a different number set for the next time you claim. And if you have to take more than one of the same number on 2 different roll occurrences, then you basically bust or lose your special die. But all of
lose your highest valued die.
Yeah, all of this in effort to try and capture some monsters and get you some points for the end of the game.
Yeah, I had this one at 7. I still liked it as well, but I like the fact that you could be rolling a bunch of dice, especially by the end of the game, because you can upgrade your land, which gives you more and more of those black dice. And it's a fun little press your luck of trying to roll for more and more, because you'll take that sum to be able to go hunt the different monsters or get the different cages I believe you could get as well. Yeah, it was an interesting one. I don't think it overtook Maracaibo as my favorite Alexander Pfister game, but I enjoyed what it was doing. I enjoyed the dice mechanism part of it, and supposedly there's other games that do that, where you roll them and can keep all of one number, and then you can't get that number again. So I might have to look into which ones those are. If you guys know in the comments below, if you can think of or know of any of those that have that mechanism, let me know, because I liked that part of it, and the rest of it I think was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It was my 5th game of the day. I don't know if I said that or not, but all right. Well, then next up, our 5th game that we played that day was DragonRealm.
Yeah, so we're staying with the monsters and the dragons.
Yes.
But yeah, this one, you set up kind of this deck of locations, and then you have 3 locations revealed at once. And you're trying to pretty much gain control of those locations via dice rolls. And you do those dice rolls based on playing cards from your hand that you are kind of either drafting visually or picking up from the top of a deck. And then you can make the different runs, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, regardless of color, all of the same color or all of the same number. So you make sets like that, and depending on how many are in that set, so if you had 2, 3, 4, so a run of 2, 3, 4, you would get to roll 3 dice in that. I don't remember which. They all had a name, different types of things, but they were just basically ways to get your meeples onto those locations. And then once the location was full, so they had either 3 or 4 or 5 spots you could fill in. Once it was full, then it would be scored based on who had the most in there, and then who had the second most. And yeah, it's a pretty simple game.
Yeah.
But I liked how that was working as well. Just picking up different cards, and it just seemed like I always had something I could try to play if I wanted to risk it, because that's a little bit of press your luck too, because it's like, that dice check there doesn't require as high of a value, so I could try to just play 2 cards and see if I can maybe get it with 2 dice.
Right.
But then I might not get it, but at least in this one you get those cards back, so you can kind of try it again, which is nice. But yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty quick. I had this one at 8, so just a little bit under Monster Expedition for me.
Okay. Yeah, I had this as my number 7. Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. It's just fighting over majority of influence in areas and stuff. So not a bad game at all. I thought it was pretty interesting. And I think we had fun with it. So
yeah, and you can reveal some little goblins in there, which
yeah, those are really
they
cute.
can take up some little spots on there.
We got
so
some
they
good
come
goblin
into play.
meeples. All right, next up we played Hardback, which was actually my number 2 game of the day.
It's my number 6.
Okay. So, in this game, you're trying to put together a novel, essentially, I think is how they frame it. We just played with the basic version, no variants.
Which it looked like there were a lot of variant things in there that you could add.
Yeah, it did. There's a lot packed in that box. So, essentially, it's deck building and card drafting. So on your turn, you have 5 cards that you drew from your pile, and you have to choose to spell a word with those 5. And so you can flip the card as a wild, but if you do that, then obviously you don't get the benefit. It's pretty standard, like any other deck builder, where you get a benefit for playing the card as an active card, and then this one kind of has this fun twist where if you play a genre matching card, so there's cards split into essentially different suits. If you play another card in that word that matches suits, you get the additional benefit of that card. So you're kind of trying to put together some good words that let you use the majority of your cards, and then you can spend any money that you earn to buy new cards, and or you might be earning prestige, and the first one to 60 prestige wins. So I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. It's fun for me to have a game. I'm wearing a bookish sweater. So it's fun for me to have games that are kind of literary themed or minded, and then on top of that, spelling words, which I think is kind of fun because I've always enjoyed spelling and words and what they mean and stuff, so it was kind of cool to see what you could come up with. And when you had a good set of cards in your hand, like instantly you knew, like, okay, here's where I can spell. And I maybe got just a little too caught up in the fun of that, and I let Zach win because I was too focused on that. But all in all, I had fun.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that one quite a bit as well. Yeah, if you're not someone that likes word-style games or creating words, I don't think it's going to appeal to you, so note that. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun, but yeah, I ended up getting kind of the green, I don't know if that was horror genre, cards, and I seem to be able to just always get those as they come out together, and could always play a word with them, and it just racked up a lot of points really quickly, which made it kind of difficult for you to catch up once. Yeah. So, yeah, it was fun. I always like making words, too.
Yeah. He made
Although I did like
3 words with
there was
same
an interesting
letters.
twist to this where throughout the game you can get these ink things, and you can use those to take the top card off your deck, but then it is inked, so you have to use that in your word. So you're taking on that risk of I don't have all the letters I want. I could try to dig through my deck or dig through my deck and see, but then I might have to play it unless you get like some white out or whatever.
Yeah.
So I like that little push your luck element, but I feel like I didn't use it as much as like one time I was hoping I'd be able to just do a bunch and then do a big really long word, but
Didn't work out that well.
it's too risky, I think, to know really what's in your deck.
Yeah.
Unless you're really paying attention.
Yeah, if you knew what was in your deck, you'd probably be pretty good. You wouldn't be like me and end up with P twice as a permanent letter that you had to use.
Happy.
It was, nope, didn't have 2 Ps, just 1.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you meant on 2 different occasions.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant in the same word.
No,
I'm
I flipped the P twice on the ink thing, so.
Unlucky.
It was unlucky. Next up, our 7th game of the day is a game that we are well familiar with, and that is Cartographer, which is my actual number 1 game of the day and my number 1 game of all time. So always a good thing when I get to play one of my favorite games.
Yeah, it was nice to get back and play this one. We hadn't played it in a while, so
we played the pure base version, which I love it so much.
I had it as my number 1 too. It was a solid experience. And
yeah,
it was just a lot of fun, and I think it actually filled out a good majority of my sheet, which doesn't always happen. So it was a good game of it.
Yeah,
it's a flip and write game if you've never played it before, and you've got your little map that you are drawing on and trying to meet these different goal requirements that are out there. It's pretty simple.
Yeah,
just polyomino shapes out onto a grid.
Do your best to score as best.
Although they did not have. They just had pencils, and they didn't have the colored pencils, which is what we use. So maybe I should have knocked this one down a bit for me.
Yeah.
But maybe not.
Its own fault. All right, next up we played, I think after Cartographers we broke for some brisket, and then we came back and we played Netrunner as our number 8 game
Android
of the day.
Netrunner.
Android Netrunner, and Zach was like, hey, this is like on the top 100.
Board Game Geek Top 100.
So I was like, all right, cool. And he's like, here, you figure it out while I go do something. And I started reading, and I'm like, the rule book was like 22 big and like full
text
explaining pages, and I was like, oh no. So I don't even know how to explain this game, but
yeah, I think I missaw it when I looked at Board Game Geek. I mean, it was truly in the top 100 of Board Game Geek, so I was like, I should play it because it got a little thing over there, a scratch off thing of I think from a few years ago, which were in the top 100. So I'm like, I should probably play this because I'm probably not going to get that many chances to play it, and it was available, but then I did not see the weight correctly, so it was like more of like a 3.5 weight, I think. So it was a heavier game, especially compared to everything else we played throughout the day. And that was a little complex.
It was later at night, and it was a little complex.
I think this was both our number 10, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't for me. I don't think I would put it in there, but I was trying to read comments on Board Game Geek afterwards to see like people that really enjoyed it, but it sounds like it's not supported anymore. I think it's a Fantasy Flight game, so I think they've kind of really quit support on almost everything outside of like, I don't remember, 1 or 2 things now. Okay. And I think it's similar to people that like Magic, or people that maybe don't love Magic like this one instead, kind of thing. So you can like manipulate your deck, build your deck. We didn't really do that. This is the first time we played it, so we just did like the standard thing that it said, and it was fine. I could see, if people are really into like the card things and how they all flow together, and you know how to play the game. Yeah. So that you don't let your opponent be able to just easily beat you.
Smash and grab, baby.
Kind of mess up. I could see. Probably would have enjoyed it a little more, if we played it a couple, more than once. Yeah. But wasn't my favorite experience, and I don't know that I'm going to go out of my way to get this one. I think it is the one, like I said earlier, the other 9 could maybe see myself getting. Yeah. I don't think I would get this one. Yeah.
It was fine. It's just, unfortunately, if we were going to play that one, that probably would have been a better early off game to
that's
play.
True, too.
And then, I don't know, it's really just not my style. It's player versus player direct, and I just don't like that kind of
I'd just rather play
strategy.
unmatched.
Yeah.
It's much simpler.
Exactly.
It doesn't, you don't have to think about it as much.
Exactly.
But
so after my brain was fried from that one, our 9th game of the day was Clever Cubed, which was my number 8 game of the day, which if you know anything about Gone Shown, there's at least 4, I think, different variants.
Clever Forever.
Yeah. Different variants of essentially a roll-and
right game.
And you score points, and Zach is a monster beast at these and always can figure out how to chain it all together, and I'm just sitting there like, how do you use this dice again? Because I don't understand. So I always get just straight up murdered, and it was fine. I just felt like this one wasn't as clear as what I was expecting for the scoring, but it could also just be because I'm used to Clever 1, Clever 2... Clever, I don't know if I've played 4 or not, but like they all have different scoring and stuff, and this one they're the same things but different, and so I just don't think I was like realizing I was trying to equate it to different ones, and I should have been, and it was late, so
yeah, I had this one at number 3, surprisingly.
Okay, did you just do that because it was
no,
dry?
I just noticed it right now.
Funny.
But I'd played this one a few times on the app. It had been a while since I played it, because even when I started reading it, I'm like, oh, this seems way more complicated than I like the first one. So just in a few of the different things, and it just more complicated than they needed to be, it felt like. But yeah, still had a good time with it. This is the first time I think I'd played it the physical copy of it. And yeah, I always enjoy me some clever games, Gone Shown clever games.
Yeah, it's good. And our last one, with minutes to spare before the con closed, we played Drop It, which was my number 4 game of the day.
It was my number 2.
Hey!
And I was thinking of possibly giving it number 1 just because we'd played Cartographers before, but in a way that does make it number 1. And yeah, we almost didn't play this. We were almost going to leave because it was about 20-25 minutes left. And we were like, should we? And I was like, I kind of just want to try it. So you said, let's just do, even if we don't do the whole game, we can just play a few turns of it or whatever. And it's a game makes me think of Connect 4, but it's not Connect 4. But you're dropping these different, I think,
shapes and colors.
4 shapes of colors into this grid thing, and you cannot have shapes touch, and you cannot have colors touch.
And then you cannot touch like colors on the edge or bottom pieces.
In certain spots.
Yeah.
And this... I just had a blast with this. I don't know. I think it's just because I went into it with, expectations. I mean, I wanted to play it because I was like, something about it seems interesting, but I wonder if it'll actually feel like that actually playing, or if it'll be like, that's not really that satisfying.
Yeah.
But I was actually very satisfied with the experience. It was a lot funner than I had thought, and it actually made me, out of probably all the games, this is probably the one, if I was going to buy one, probably the one that I would buy, considering we already have Cartographers. That's probably the one that I would purchase that we played there, just because I had a blast with it, and I think this is one you could easily play with any member of the family.
That's true.
Including probably kids down to pretty young ages, I think.
Oh, yeah. If nothing else, they just have fun dropping the colors in.
Right.
Yeah, I gave it my 4th. I agree. Yeah, I think that's fair. If you were going to buy one, I would probably say buy that one, because I feel like that would probably most likely be the one that would get to the table out of all of them. Some of these other ones that I preferred probably aren't as likely to, just knowing our group and who we game with and all of that stuff. So, yeah, it was just kind of chaotic fun. We just had fun with it, and yeah, there's a lot to think about. You wouldn't think how much there be to think about, but then all of a sudden...
And then MaKayla's starting to drop it, I'm stopping her. No! You've got the diamond right there. There's no way this doesn't touch.
Just so many bad choices.
You're tired.
Choices. Yeah. I don't know if I understood, but we were just kind of playing to play.
Yeah.
So
it's a game you definitely can play if you are tired or really are just I don't want to think about anything. I just want to drop these for fun.
Yeah, and I think
drop it for fun.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. It's a good one. So that was our basically our whole day at CastleCon, other than a couple meal breaks and everything.
Yeah, maybe if you are interested, I don't know, if you live in the Minnesota area, Rochester area, I'm assuming they'll probably have it again in the future. Maybe not. They did have a lot of people there, which was surprising considering it was the first time. I guess I don't know if it's surprising.
Yeah.
It's a little surprising to me that the first time convention had pretty much the whole place filled up. Like I said, especially when we got there, it was
so
quite
packed.
crowded. By the end, the last couple hours of it, I think it had
finally
kind of
down.
emptied out a little bit. But yeah, I think overall they did a really good job for first time. I liked the fact that trying to think, have other ones had like vendors in there to buy stuff to eat and drink and stuff? I'm trying to remember the other ones that we've gone to. I think that's maybe a first for us. Not saying no con does that.
Yeah, I mean, Ostakon had like the bar that was open at night, which wasn't necessarily like foods, but you could get like drinks.
True.
And they had that in-house restaurant or whatever, so if you really needed to, you could eat there. And then at 2D Con, they didn't have like a vendor for food and drink, but they did have those like rooms where you could go and buy food for as long as it lasted. So I would say that was somewhat similar to what Rochester did.
That's true. But yeah, I like that it was easily available, and then they had some other vendors there that kind of reminded me of most of the other ones that we've gone to, kind of similar things. So nothing too special there. I think their library was more geared towards a little bit more family geared. There were some heavier games, but I'm very much into like heavy Euro style games, and I would say they did not have a ton of those options there. But it was still a good, probably 200 to 300 game library, and a lot of good options. I mean, all of these are games, if it had all the heavy Euro options, I would never got a chance to play, and I actually enjoyed almost all of these. And they, we were there for 11, 12 hours with some breaks in there, and we got 10 games played. So, I mean, that doesn't happen if you're playing heavy Euro games.
Yeah, this is true. Very true.
Typically.
Yeah.
Especially if you're learning them, just like we learned all these.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we got a lot out of our day because of that. So.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the venue itself was this old theater. I think it's used for theater stuff. It was actually really cool.
It was built in the 1920s, and it's downtown Rochester, kind of by the Mayo area. And the theater inside, so it's got kind of the old school theater signage on the outside with the lights and stuff, like you'd see on Broadway type of a thing. And then on the inside, I don't know if it's refurbished or what, but like the inside is a castle landscape, which is really cool because it's got like different pockets and looks exactly what you'd like imagine some type of play castle type thing to look like, and which is really cool because it goes all the way up to the ceiling and it wraps all the way around the room, and you're essentially in a huge auditorium. So. Right,
but it doesn't feel like ones that we went to normal, like just convention hall area.
Yeah,
thing.
Definitely.
It didn't feel anything like that. It felt like this. I don't know. It just gave it extra cool feeling. So I really liked that about
Extra nerd.
Extra nerd. So if you want to, I don't know. We'll see if they do it there again though, because it was very crowded feeling. So if this thing, if it does grow, I don't know that they'll have that much room, because I would say you'd almost have to limit it at about what they had, because it was pretty tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, had a good time with it. I think they did a pretty great job, especially for the first time. Can't think of many negative experience with it. So.
No, overall, it was a good day.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know in the comments below if you've played any of these games, which ones you like the most. And get back to me on that dice rolling. I think I've heard there's that mechanism in other games. So let me know in the comments below if you know those types of games. But otherwise, we hope to see you on other videos. And as always, don't forget to keep on nibbling on our content.